Greetings. I'm Detective Sergeant First Class Harry Gavel, Camden County Prosecutor's Office Homicide Division, retired. The story I'm about to tell you is true. I call it murder at Mom and Pop's. Listener discretion is advised due to the graphic nature of the content. The following episode recounts the details of a real homicide investigation. All information presented is taken from public court records, law enforcement files, and direct investigative experience. The names of the victims and individuals involved are used with the utmost respect. No part of this story is intended to exploit or sensationalize their suffering. As a retired homicide investigator, I believe these stories matter. To honor the victims, to understand the truth, and to bring closure to the families left behind. Some content may be disturbing to listeners. I'm coming to you live today from sunny Sarasota, Florida, the murder capital of the nation podcast studios. You know, sometimes when you're summoned to a murder case and you're headed out to that scene, you expect, or at least you are very much hoping, that you will find evidence there. Some kind of a clue to give you direction or guide you or help you investigate the case. Not this time. This murder scene dealt us a dead man's hand from the jump. A pair of black aces of spades and a pair of black eights in spades. Sometimes that's all you get. This case I call murder at Mom and Pop's, the dead man's hand. It was a Tuesday, February the 5th, 1991. Just another day in the predominantly Hispanic neighborhood of the 800 block of South 4th Street in Camden City, New Jersey. Only problem with that was, it was Camden, New Jersey, the murder capital of the nation. Camden was dubbed that several years consecutively in the 1990s. Murder could strike like lightning at any given moment, at any given place. When you walk down a dark alley in the middle of the night, you are automatically on guard. You're on alert. Your body's telling you to be careful. You're watching out. You're watching out for something bad that you know could very much happen. I've been down that alley many a night, as you could probably imagine, especially in Camden City, New Jersey, also my hometown, where I was born and raised. If you lived there during the 1990s, you kept your guard up in that city, albeit no dark alley or not. If you lived or worked there, you were probably stuck there due to a myriad of reasons. Fact was, you had to deal with the cards you were dealt, and very often you were dealt a dead man's hand. A pair of black aces and a pair of black eights. On this Tuesday evening, Camden, sadly, would lose one of its favorite mom-and-pop mini-market stores, which were popular throughout Camden's neighborhood. This one was nestled at 821 South 4th Street. Also lost on this fateful day was its beloved, and I quote, Abuelo. That meant grandfather in Spanish. The victim, Jose Berrios. His wife, Vera. The couple migrated from the old country of Puerto Rico in earlier years. Mr. Berrios, Jose, also known as Abuelo, age 59, was in fact grandfather to his family, his many friends, and his customers alike. He was truly a man of compassion and had a heart of gold to all he knew and loved. He had a reputation of helping anyone and hurting no one. He did feel safe in his store working side by side with his wife every day, except on Sundays. They were a loving team, and everyone in the hood seemed to love them. Mr. Berrios wasn't a criminal. He wasn't a gang member or someone living a dangerous lifestyle. I mean, this man, he was simply a hard-working businessman, trying to make a living, like so many other store owners. He opened his doors each morning hoping to provide for his family while serving his community at the same time. Then, in an instant, suddenly, everything changed. Forever. Everything was lost, though nothing was stolen. Nothing, that is, except for this man's life. 2 armed, masked men, wearing all black, burst into the storefront. They were brandishing a sawed-off shotgun. They were wearing black gloves, their faces behind black ski masks. The sight of the sawed-off shotgun alone that one of them were brandishing struck instant fear in their hearts. Mrs. Berrios lunged toward her beloved husband as she begged quietly and quickly, asking God to please help them. Since both men were wearing masks, they hoped against hope that they would just rob them and leave them standing in their shoes. But at the same time, they knew very well where they were. They knew the well-known fact that people in this city were being murdered in record numbers and for worthless reasons. They often thought of closing the store during this period. It was that violent in the city of Camden. Now, even though they heard this horrific sawed-off shotgun blast through the storefront and up into the ceiling, they saw that the shot went to the ceiling, but they both quivered in fear. Anyway, thinking, were we just shot? The masked men demanded money from the cash register. Mr. Berrios was way too upset at this point. He could not open the cash register without a sale. But then he remembered he could open the cash register without making a sale, since he was the owner of the cash register, but he was just too nervous and upset to remember how to do it. It was tricky. Both men continued to demand the money from the cash register. Still, Mr. Berrios could not accommodate the robbers. Both robbers are now going to attempt to open the cash register themselves. They both simultaneously pounce on the cash register. They're furiously pushing the keys down. They're shaking the cash register. Mr. Berrios is still refusing to surrender. He is now too close to the cash register and is seen as a threat by the robbers. The robbers believe he is stalling on purpose to thwart the robbery. They now placed a shotgun directly into the stomach of Mr. Berrios. The blast at point-blank range proved to be fatal. Not only did it knock Mr. Berrios back several feet, it caused such a horrific wound that some of his internal organs spilled out onto the floor in front of him as he crumpled down to the ground, landing on top of his own guts. He was probably dead before he hit the floor. His wife Vera, of course, watching this in horror, faints at that moment. She falls face down on the floor only a few feet from her husband. But this act probably indeed saved her life. In the robbers', killers' now minds, she was at least quiet and not a threat while lying unconscious on the floor. They wanted the money. That's what they came there for. Both now continued to rip the electric cord of the cash register out of the wall in an attempt to steal the cash register, since they couldn't open it. This proved futile. The cash register was way too heavy and bulky for them. Their next act appeared to be a last-ditch effort to attempt to grab the cash and run. They slammed the register down on the floor of the store. Their hope was that it would bust open and they would somehow then access their prize money, a few bucks, in exchange for ruining the lives of this unfortunate family. After not being able to steal the cash register, both armed masked men ran out of the store into the darkness of the unlit Camden night. We had nothing. No witnesses. No identifying information. No known race, color, creed, age. Just two men wearing all black. Black hoodies, black gloves, black ski masks, black boots, no fingerprints, no cameras as we have today, no biological evidence left behind. One said to be slightly taller than the other. One spent 12-gauge shotgun shell casing lying empty on the floor. However, the sole witness left alive, Mrs. Berrios, told us, and I quote, "The voices sounded Hispanic." This was a good clue, believe it or not. If correct, the reason being it was a good clue, this was a heavily populated area with Hispanic families. We would be certain to alert the community of this brutal attack on their neighborhood family grocery store and ask to keep their eyes and ears open. We needed help on this one. We would hit it hard and heavy. This was the kind of murder that the community could and would take personal. This couple that ran this grocery store was beloved to them. The Camden City Police Department was called out and the Camden County Prosecutor's Homicide Division was notified. I was first out. I arrived on the scene. I met my Camden City detective partner there. A Camden City police car was parked out in front of the store. They were in the process of roping off the immediate area of the front of the store with yellow crime tape. Camden County Prosecutor's Office Crime Lab was dispatched to the scene and a full-blown homicide investigation was underway. We posted a uniformed Camden police officer at the front door and commenced the duties of the homicide unit on the interior confines of the store. You know that this included sketches, photographs, collection of any and all evidence, and various other duties. Mrs. Berrios was transported to the Detective Bureau for questioning after determining that she was not injured in the melee. Now, she was totally distraught, but we still had to interview her. She was our only living witness to this brutal crime. Now, we had our Victims of Violent Crimes Witness Unit come out and meet her at our offices to comfort and assist her while she was there in our company. For many police departments, this case might have gone cold before it ever really began. But homicide investigations aren't solved by miracles. They are solved by working them. They are solved by persistence. When you are a homicide detective and you are tasked with the job of actually detecting, you must become like a bad fart to those you seek. You never seem to just go away. You hang in there. You linger and prolong your very unwanted but highly anticipated departure. Now, cases do go cold, don't get me wrong, but they remain open until closed by arrest. My partner from the Camden City Police Department and I began knocking on doors, interviewing anyone who might know or have seen something, anything related to our job at hand. Eventually, before 1 week was out, well, actually within a couple of days, we began to receive very small pieces of information. The first fragment of information, as I can recall it, was very scant and sketchy. The information was that the weapon used in this tragic murder, a sawed-off shotgun, had been melted down by an unknown third party at an unknown location somewhere in the city. Now, of course, hearing this, you can imagine, was very frustrating to us. Recovering the murder weapon is always a top priority in every case in which a weapon was introduced or used. In this case, the murder weapon was very important. Being that it was a shotgun, there is very little ballistic information which can be obtained from a shotgun, linking a shotgun to a specific murder. So recovering it makes it that much more important. This piece of information was just that, a piece of information. At this juncture, we couldn't corroborate or even know for certain that it was even true or correct information. It was not substantiated. But we would learn more, which we were desperate to learn. But at this stage, it was like showing a dog a big, fat, beautiful, juicy ham bone and then throwing it far and deep into the ocean and saying, go fetch it. The first suspect, whose name surfaced, but as a rumor only, indicated that he was one of the mass robbers turned killers in the case. He was identified as a juvenile, Frankie Santana, Hispanic male, age 16, address 200 block of Spruce Street, Camden, New Jersey. Now we dug into the background of this boy, trying to find out everything and anything we could before actually picking him up. That's always strategy of a homicide investigation. And we learned that this boy was already making a name for himself. He already had a police arrest record. And his reputation was that he was a brazen armed robber, desperate and ruthless at the tender age of 16. To the street, he was starting to be feared by his willingness to stick you up at gunpoint, although usually he had a backup guy with him, a homeboy. He was known to steal your drugs and money, threaten you with death, and then disappear. The case would usually go unreported, given the fact that the street codes were in effect. It was all about snitches getting stitches. To us, he was a punk kid who needed to be cased up for a crime he commits and prosecuted as a career criminal juvenile. Yeah, I wanted to get his ass tucked away for a nice long stretch. Luckily for us, in this case, it turned out that he was in fact the trigger man in this murder. That fact alone would get him his long overdue vacation with the gang sitting under the clock in Trenton's state prison. We were sure the trigger man at his age would be waved up as an adult. After a few hours of intense questioning of Santana, and after his Miranda warnings were given, he finally gives it up. Gives it up in full. In doing so, he talks about his partner was the one who had the connection with a Camden dude, unknown, that destroyed the shotgun for them. He claimed that he only knew that the guy got the shotgun and supposedly was going to melt it down. Well, trust me, we pressed on that. We thought he knew more. He claimed that he shot the man in the store. He thought he was still alive when they left due to hearing the man making groaning noises on the floor. Now, he was pretty reluctant to give us the name of his partner in crime, his quote-unquote homeboy that was with him during the robbery, murder, but not because of what you might think, not because he was being loyal to his co-conspirator, but because he feared he would be killed if he snitched on him. That was the code in the city of blood and tears. If you snitch, you are for sure done. Marked and dealt with accordingly. Snitches get stitches. The name of his co-defendant was Jose Victor, aka Papo Martinez. Hispanic male, age 18, who resided in the 1100 block of South 3rd Street, Camden, New Jersey. Just as we thought. This job was done by two young thugs from this very hood where it happened. That's why we applied and concentrated pressure on this neighborhood. That was our strategy from the beginning, and it worked. In this case, we wanted not only to focus on trying to uncover the whereabouts of Mr. Martinez, but also the whereabouts of the smelting of our murder weapon. We pond ourselves with the question, how many other murder or weapons of crime were turned into scrap iron money? Who was this fixer? This wizard behind the curtain, if you will, destroying evidence after the fact? Oh, I wanted his ass. Trust me on that one. You can imagine, as a homicide detective hearing this in one of your murder cases, this is big. You want this guy, and you want him yesterday. Oh yeah, we wanted to know. We wanted to know the answer to the 5 whores and the hobo. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. Yep, the detective's textbook questions were looming. However, pressing right now was hunting down Martinez. By now he had gotten the word that we had Santana. Oh, he was concerned, I'm sure. We found out later. But he wasn't too worried that he would be caught. We learned all this after his capture. His thinking was, number one, that's my homeboy. He knows what happens if you snitch. He ain't no rat. Now he also knew that his partner was the actual shooter. And he felt that if Santana ratted on him, that he would turn it around. He would turn state's witness against Santana in order to make a better deal for himself. Now you can understand this if you know anything about city policing. These boys might be young. Yeah, these boys are very young. But they know the system. They are no strangers to playing for high stakes in the hood. In fact, we're talking about a city in which juveniles are in high demand to be street corner drug dealers, to run drug sets for the adult drug dealers. Reason being, if a juvie gets caught, he will be released to a parent or guardian, and the penalties were much more reduced than if you were arrested as an adult. Check out my podcast on the Sons of Malcolm X, the Gang from Hell. Camden criminals had their ways, albeit minimal, of navigating through the wheels of justice. And we had our ways of turning up the screws to administer that same ever slow churning wheel of justice. You can take that to the bank. Victor Martinez was nabbed only a couple of days after his blind spree of murder unfolded. He was a couple of years older than Santana, but he was a badass in his own right. He realized from his initial arrest that Santana ratted on him, and after rousing him up from his fantasy of innocence, we brought him to the prosecutor's office homicide squad interrogation room and Mirandized him. Our strategy was not to try to tell him that Santana said that he was the shooter or the trigger man, or tell him that him being older, he was responsible for everything. Santana was told that Martinez would kill him if he didn't go along with everything. Well, we knew if we told Martinez that he would know it's not true. No. So I decided to go for this thug's jugular vein. He sat there initially wanting to play tough guy. Well, I knew I had the upper hand. I folded my arms across my chest while sitting in my chair, which was only a few feet away from his, but not right up close on top of him, like we tend to get sometimes. I sat back with my legs spread open, leaning back in my chair, with a posture that said, "Oh, we got all day. And, most importantly, we got you." He would know that we would be lying to him, and we know better than to bluff in a serious homicide investigation. I said, "Here's your chance to tell us your involvement in this murder. Now you can either help yourself by being completely honest, or you can help bury yourself by lying to us. And I'll tell you this, you are not here right now by accident. You got to know that, right?" As he started his response, he knew right away that he wanted to fish for how much we knew about his involvement in this case. We knew right away that he wanted to try to minimize his involvement. Very typical for us. We know this up front. We know that a lot of times that's what they're going to do. What they don't know is we are masters at that game. First off, he says, "I ain't killed nobody." He heard about it on the news from the store where it happened, that the man died. And it was on South 4th Street. Yeah, the man died. I did hear that on TV. I responded, "Very good. So far you're being truthful. We know you didn't pull the trigger. We know Mr. Berrios, the store owner, has died. Yeah, he's dead. And we also know that you did not kill him." Now he goes mute. I let it hang for a couple seconds. And then I say, "So who shot him?" He says, shrugging his shoulders, "I don't know." I bust out laughing right in his face. I say, "Well," I slide my chair forward more now toward my desk, "I guess you think we're playing with you. Well, we ain't, son. You are under arrest for murder one. Murder one because there was a robbery attempt. And yes, you were there, and we can prove it." Now, I don't want to bore you guys with the long interview and deep dive investigative discussions which followed this initial routine of us rattling our sabers. Suffice it to say, we obtained a full and complete detailed confession from both suspects. Both suspects corroborated the facts that we knew had factually occurred at the scene of our murder, attempted robbery. The process took pretty much all day to complete. From initial contact to having them booked for murder in the first degree, there was a lot of work to do. We thought that there might be a chance that we would lose the first-degree charge since there was no evidence that the robbery was successful. But it really didn't matter. You could always downgrade charges to murder, and you can always upgrade charges and add charges to a murder case. No problem. Both of these scumbags, if you will, were hauled before the Superior Court for arraignments. Santana's arraignment was handled by the Camden County Prosecutor's Office Homicide Assistant Prosecutor Michael Chukanes. He was a hard-boiled Irishman with an attitude and a tongue like a bullwhip. While the arraignment of the adult, Victor Jose Papo Martinez, was handled by Camden County Prosecutor's Office Assistant Prosecutor the Honorable James Lynch, a true statesman and legal scholar. In the case of the juvenile, Frankie Santana, his defense attorney, Mike Miller, a well-known established Camden City attorney, tried to keep his case in juvenile court due to his age, his tender age. He introduced a psychiatrist by the name of Dr. Harvey Mushikoff. Dr. Mushikoff suggested that the juvenile could be rehabilitated through one of two programs for troubled youth. This was being held in front of Superior Court Judge Vincent Siegel, who correctly, in our humble opinion, rejected the suggestion presented by Mushikoff, stating that the suggestions were mispresented in Mushikoff's testimony and neither program was appropriate for someone charged with this type of violent offense. Judge Siegel noted that the killing of Berrios was intentional, since the robbers had gone into the store with a weapon and had fired one warning shot before killing Berrios. He went on to state, after turning the juvenile Santana over to be tried as an adult in this case, that society has a right to be protected and definitely entitled to be protected from such acts of violence. In closing, he stated, a murder conviction carries a sentence of 30 years in prison. Santana's bail was then promptly set at $250,000. That's right, that's $250,000 bail. As was the bail also set for the co-defendant in the case, Victor Jose Papo Martinez, at the same number, $250,000. During the investigation, there was much effort to track down the person or persons who might be responsible for melting down the sawed-off shotgun, the actual murder weapon in our case. I can honestly tell you, my thoughts at the time were, if we are able to identify and locate this person or persons, it could very well open up a very serious criminal investigation, which could very well prove to be many things, vis-a-vis an additional witness about this case, whatever knowledge he may possess, a witness to other crimes that we didn't know about, perhaps even other murders, an undercover operation as to what was actually going on at this location, money being made to destroy weapons, evidence, who was running the show, who all is involved, how long has this been going on? We were salivating over the prospect of uncovering and exposing what could very well be the tip of a criminal iceberg. Only this time we met a cold dead end. We were dealt again a dead man's hand. The end. This is Detective Sergeant First Class Harry Gabble, Camden County Prosecutor's Office, Homicide Division, retired. Tune in for another true detective story from the murder capital. See you next time.